All right, welcome back to Game Day U. We have battled technical difficulties. We have battled snowstorms. We have battled through just about anything you can imagine, but we are here with a full 30-minute show for you. I'm joined by Horan and Dacoda McDowell-Wahpekeche. And guys, last night OU battled through a tough one with Texas Tech. They started off slow, but were able to pull it back a little bit. But unfortunately for the Sooners, two Texas Tech players just absolutely went off. Vivian Gray had 35, and Taylor Thompson had 22 and 11. However, some good news for the Sooners. Nevaeh did tie her season high with 16 points, but unfortunately for the Sooners, it was just not enough, losing 97-87. And guys, that's now two back-to-back losses, first against Texas and now against Texas Tech. Dacoda, what needs to change for the Sooners to get back on track?
Rebounding. Oh my goodness. Rebounding is killing the Sooners right now. Currently, they're on that two-game losing streak going against Iowa State this weekend, but they've got to change that up. Boards are the key. So in the past games that they've won against Texas and Baylor, it's been a different story with that. Against Texas, the rebounding was 37-37. That's a good night on rebounding. And then against Baylor, they actually won the rebounding game in Waco. It was 46-35. So they've got to change that up. And right in these past two games, it just has not been good on the boards.
Dacoda, like you said, I'm also going to look at it from a rebounding perspective. OU got out-rebounded by Texas 45-23 and 41-32 against Texas Tech, which, I mean, at any level of basketball, it's going to be hard to win a game when you don't rebound the ball well. The team obviously lacks in size, and so they've got to be better at rebounding the ball, and I think if they do that, then we'll see some better results.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with both of you guys. It's been a tried and true era of this team that seems to kind of keep poking its head out, and obviously, like you said, you can't do much about the size aspect. That's just the reality of it. Exactly, but you have to figure out a way, whether it's play style, crashing the boards, or possibly even a lineup change, which is what I think needs to happen. I think that Kelby Washington needs to be reinserted into the starting five. I think that at this point, you saw last night, Texas Tech, another slow start. It's something that has happened. We saw it. They played at Kansas. They got off to a slow start. And these games against realistically lesser teams are staying close because the Sooners just come out flat. And there's one thing about Kelby Washington. She's never flat. There's always going to be so much energy, and I feel like that she brings up that energy of the team as a whole. And obviously that does make your size of the starting five smaller, because I do think that Kennedy Tucker would be the one that will go out of that, because I think that Tot has been playing very well. Like I said, just got her season high last night. So it's the reality of it, though. I think that the Sooners need that energy. They need that spark coming straight off, because we're getting towards postseason. It's time that your best players need to be playing the most minutes. Exactly. And defense is exactly what Kelby Washington brings. You've seen these last two games, guard play has killed them. They've had two really high-scoring guards on the other team that Kelby Washington could pick up from the beginning of the game and play on that person the entire time, because she has the energy to do that.
Yeah, she's an Energizer bunny.
Yeah, so it's going to, rebounding is not going to improve from that, but it can't get much worse right now, realistically. So I think that putting Kelby Washington back in that starting five, which she originally was at the beginning of the season before her 3-game absence in January, and I just can't put my finger on why. And I think that is exactly what the Sooners could need to kind of build a little bit more energy up into this. But guys, like I said, two back-to-back losses, and that Texas Tech one is pretty brutal. So Dacoda, do you think that Texas Tech loss is the worst loss of the season so far?
I don't think so. Honestly, when I'm looking at it right now, these are just losses, and the Sooner team is really good. What I think is actually the worst loss isn't even a game. It's just momentum. They're going into postseason here coming up, and they were on a hot streak. I mean, they've had 2 4-game winning streaks this year. They had like a little loss right in between it, or it would have been a 9-game win streak. So I'm kind of looking at it like, ooh, that momentum is just gone now. They've got a tough matchup this weekend, another matchup on this next week, and if they want to bounce back, they need to bounce back if they're going to be winning. And like I said, it's getting really close. There's only 5 games left, and you need that momentum going into the Big 12 conference tournament and postseason with NCAA. So I think momentum is really the worst loss here.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dacoda. I like that answer. But for the question, I'm going to have to go with the game against Kansas State. We all know what happened with Ayoka Lee dropping 61. She's a once-in-a-lifetime kind of generational talent, so I'm not going to hold that against the Sooners for too much. But it was still a very bad game for the Sooners, and it was a blowout. But they've bounced back since that game, so I think that's the worst loss that the Sooners have had so far was against Ayoka Lee in Kansas State.
Yeah, I see what you're saying with the historical perspective of it, but I don't think it can be the worst loss when the talent of Ayoka Lee that's gonna I mean, not to that level usually, but Ayoka Lee is that level of talent. There's just some nights stars are gonna be stars, and it just happened to be against the Sooners on the most historical night in scoring history for women's basketball, and it's unfortunate, but it happens. So for me, I think that Texas Tech is easily the worst loss of the season so far. Texas Tech is not a good team. Yeah. They were on a 7-game losing streak prior to this game. And yes, they've upset some teams in the Big 12. They beat Kansas State. They beat Texas. They beat Oklahoma. You want to know who else they beat in the Big 12? Nobody. They have 3 Big 12 wins. That's all they have.
They're terrible.
And so that's just the reality of it, that the Sooners came out flat and they did not have enough time to bounce back. Yep. And that's where that issue is, because you're right. That loss of momentum is ginormous right now. It's time where you gotta keep building that. And the Sooners haven't faced adversity like this so far this season. They haven't had back-to-back losses. They've been able to bounce back every time, and Texas Tech is a team that they should have bounced back against. That seemed like a gimme. It was at home against a bad Big 12 team, and they came out flat.
I thought for sure they'd win that game.
Yeah.
And Lloyd Noble, really.
Exactly.
Tough.
I think everyone thought they did. So that's why, for me, I understand the historical significance of it, but when it comes to this season alone and what the impact could have on the team possibly and the future going into the postseason, I think that Texas Tech loss is going to be the worst because of that loss of momentum. So I definitely see what you're saying though, and I mean Ayoka Lee is just
she's unreal.
Yeah, she's absolutely incredible.
And if we're looking at that Texas Tech loss even more, whenever it comes time for Monday with the rankings, that's going to hold the Sooners back a good amount.
And that top 4 seed is looking a little shaky, and that's home court advantage going into the first 2 rounds of the tournament.
They need that.
Can't lose that, or you're not going to be hosting, and it's going to be tough.
Exactly. Well, we've heard our thoughts on the losses. Now let's go talk to Coach Jennie Baranczyk herself next on Game Day U.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
How prepared is your family if a tornado shows up at your doorstep, or a flood, or a hurricane? You can't just turn away a natural disaster. That's why it's important to go to ready.gov/plan now. It has the tools and tips you need to make an emergency plan with your family. So if disaster comes knocking,
let's go.
You'll be ready to help keep your family safe.
It's just a pizza.
Yes.
Make a plan today.
Welcome back to Game Day U. We are now joined by Coach Jennie Baranczyk. And Coach, back-to-back Big 12 losses. What does your team have to do, either on the court or mentally off it, to get back on track?
You know, it's always tough, especially we haven't dealt with this all season, which is kind of a good problem, right? But at the same time, it's, you know, we just have to get back to basics. We got to focus on having fun. We got to focus on getting better. And, you know, sometimes stuff happens. We got to learn what we need to learn, and we need to continue to grow and get better. And it's really that simple. But it's also that time of year just to really get back to who we are and just to, play and have fun.
Yeah, Coach, the Sooners have allowed 86 rebounds, and you've gotten 55 to your team. So what are you going to have to do to flip or change the, part of the game of rebounding to go in your favor?
Yeah, I think it's a huge part. And it's, obviously they're both opponents have really done a nice job of converting on those as well. So there's a lot of points in that. And conversely, we haven't. So we need to be able to really do a much better job of our team rebounding and getting everyone involved. We already know that we don't have the size. So we can't just use that as an excuse. We've got to be able to just find a way. And so that part of that's coaching, part of that's playing. So we will. And then the other thing is we just got to give ourselves a few more second chances. So if we're pretty fast. So if we can go ahead and get in there and create some other opportunities on the other end, that will help as well.
Coach, Ashley Jones is averaging 19 points a game for the Cyclones. How do you plan to stop her on Saturday?
Well, I don't know if anyone has stopped her yet. So I think a huge piece for us is, again, it's definitely going to be a team defense. And, the thing about, I think what makes Iowa State so special is they have a lot of different players. So it's not one player. And even though she does average a lot of points and she's an incredible player, you have to still guard everybody. And so that's something, especially at home. So for us, we just got to get back to being together, to playing team defense, to help each other, communicate a little bit better and finish the play.
Well, Coach, you did play the Cyclones earlier this season in Norman, fell to them then, and in that game, Taylor Robertson was unable to reach double figures when it comes to scoring. What do you feel like is going to be big for her to kind of get into those upper numbers that we're used to seeing from the three-point sharpshooter?
Yeah, Taylor's one that she just plays. And so from her standpoint, she's had some games where she hasn't had to score. She's created some opportunities for others. So she needs to just continue to be able to play. And it's not even just Taylor, it's all of us. When we all have great movement and we're setting each other up and we're playing at the pace we want to play, we're a really special team. And so that's really going to be our main focus. Instead of on individuals, we're going to really stay focused on our team.
And Coach, it wasn't all bad news in the past week or so. You were actually named to the top 10 finalist list for the National Coach of the Year. What does that mean to you as an individual, and what does that reflect on your team and your coaching staff as a whole for you to get that honor?
I wasn't really expecting you to ask me that. And so you got me, because you immediately go to the two games and you don't even want to touch that. However, at the same time, those honors are just a reflection of the team and the program and the foundation and the culture. So although that's pretty fun, we still got a lot of work to do, and that's what we're going to focus on.
Well, Coach, thank you so much for joining us. Stay safe with all these high winds and everything, and good luck against Iowa State this weekend. We'll see you next week.
Hey, you guys, thank you so much. Appreciate you. Boomer.
All right, well, we do have a loaded weekend of Big 12 basketball, and we have all the picks for you coming up next on Game Day U.
Awkward. I'm the awkward silence. You try to avoid me, then there I am again.
But an awkward silence can be a great thing.
Like Kelly here is about to demonstrate.
You haven't really been yourself lately. Are you okay?
Find out how you can help a friend with their mental health at seizetheawkward.org.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move. So I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
If you need to do something to feel okay to drive, you're not okay to drive. Don't drive buzzed.
How prepared is your family if a tornado shows up at your doorstep, or a flood, or a hurricane? You can't just turn away a natural disaster. That's why it's important to go to ready.gov/plan now. It has the tools and tips you need to make an emergency plan with your family. So if disaster comes knocking,
let's go.
You'll be ready to help keep your family safe.
It's just a pizza.
Yes. Make a plan today.
OU freshman women's basketball player Kelby Washington is living her childhood dream of playing for the Sooners. But what makes this dream even sweeter is having her old high school coach and OU basketball alum, Neal, on Oklahoma's coaching staff.
It's the biggest, most tremendous blessing I think I could never come across. Never in a million years would I thought that this would be possible, but just really fortunate and blessed that things happen at the right time.
Neal was a Sooner himself from 2005 to 2007 and averaged 11 points and 2.6 rebounds while shooting 37.5% from three-point range. Before his basketball journey came full circle at Oklahoma, Neal was the head coach of the women's basketball team at Norman High School for 7 seasons. One of his star players was none other than Washington, whom he'd already known for quite some time.
Kelby was itty bitty whenever I first met her and her mom. Mom's administrator, one of the administrators at in Norman Public Schools, and I worked for Norman Public Schools, so I used to see her quite a bit as a third grader.
Washington was very happy when the news broke that Neal would be joining OU's coaching staff.
Especially him being there for me, like on and off the court, and now him in college with me, one of my coaches. So he's been training with me and stuff. So I'm just happy I get to be with him and through this long ride of college basketball.
Head coach Jennie Baranczyk is quite aware of the unique dynamic between Washington and Neal.
Really cool for me to see, and I think for our team to see, because he can coach her at a little different level. He can push her a little bit harder. But also he's also her biggest cheerleader, just like he is for everybody. And I think it's really cool.
And Washington says that their long history and close relationship allows Neal to challenge her on the court.
He knows me probably better than I know myself on the basketball court. It's something that is very helpful. And I think that's why I keep developing the way I am, is because he knows exactly the things I'm going to do before I probably even do it. So, and things I need to work on as well. So I think that's the reason why, my developing here and even before when he was training me has improved so much.
And through the years, from grade school to Norman High to the University of Oklahoma, Washington's respect for her longtime coach has only grown stronger.
I saw him as someone that I looked up to, just because, he was honest with me and he didn't just want to tell me what I want to hear. He was helping me and he wanted me to grow just as much as I wanted to grow.
Carly Murray, Gameday U.
Welcome back to Gameday U. Like I said, huge slate of games this weekend for the Big 12. Pretty much every team is in action. So we're going to start off. We're going to go to Stillwater. OSU and Kansas State. Dakota, who do you have going?
Inside Gallagher-Iba, I've got K-State. Once again, I'm on my Ayoka Lee is just amazing kind of input on there. So she's averaging a good amount of points, but in their last matchup, she had 18 and 6 rebounds. She might go into here. It's an away game for her with more of a mindset, I've got to do better, because she is a generational player, as you were saying earlier. So Ayoka Lee, once again, probably just going to do it. She's that kind of player.
Dakota, I'm going to have to agree with you on that one. I mean, we saw what she did to the Sooners. Oklahoma State doesn't exactly have the best defense in the world, and it's certainly not better than Oklahoma's defense, so I just think she's going to just dog them. She's going to dominate like she does, and it's going to be a ugly result in that game.
Yeah, Dakota, you're right. They did hold her to, they're still great numbers, but for Ayoka Lee, those are pedestrian numbers. That's nothing for Ayoka Lee. And Kansas State still won by double digits. So imagine when Ayoka Lee starts gets a double-double and plays like Ayoka Lee. I think Kansas State's going to win too. Like I said, I think you're totally correct. I just don't think OSU has the size, the talent to match up with a player like Lee.
Yeah, I do think it will be a fun game, though, because OSU just the other day beat Texas Tech, who just beat the number 15 team, Oklahoma. So, I mean, it's kind of wild. It's still K-State over OSU, but, I mean, it'll be a fun game, though.
Yeah, well, you mentioned Tech. We'll go to the other Kansas team now. Kansas and Texas Tech are matching up. Dakota, who do you got?
Dude, the Sunflower State, man. KU. Oh, my gosh. I was looking at it, and, man, they're on a 6-game win streak. They're doing really good. And like we were just talking about the other day with last night, Texas Tech looked amazing. They beat number 15. But KU is just feeling it right now. It's the perfect time. I was talking about momentum earlier in the show. Momentum is with Kansas. It's with that great team right now. So, I'm taking Kansas over to Texas Tech.
Dakota, I'm going to have to disagree with you on this one. I got Tech. I'm going with the underdog. I saw what Vivian Gray did last night to the Sooners, and she is an absolute walking bucket. She's going to give Kansas buckets, and I think Texas is going to walk out of there with a win.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Vivian Gray is nuts. She can, yeah, she's pretty automatic. But let's not get too ahead of ourselves here. I still think that Kansas is going to be able to pull this one out because, yes, Texas Tech did beat OU. That is an upset. But meaning, because it's an upset, means that the team had to be bad first. They were on a 7-game losing streak before playing Oklahoma, including a loss to Kansas. So I just don't think – I think that obviously Texas Tech played great last night. They deserved that win. But let's, we had a whole season to see what exactly this Texas Tech team was. And we kind of know, right? But like I said, Vivian Gray absolutely has the opportunity to pop off. But I just think that Kansas has some shooters on that team and they can shoot the ball too. So I think that, yes, Texas Tech, probably feeling themselves right now. But realistically, Kansas on a win streak against the lesser teams, and they're about to run the gauntlet of all 4 ranked Big 12 teams after this game against Texas Tech. So I think they get one more. And then they go through a real tough stretch. But I think that they're going to pull this one off. Exactly. And that would be huge for them to come into this game. And I'm sure that is exactly what's being said in those locker rooms and everything, that this is a huge momentum game for them. But next up, the Texas Longhorns, who just beat the Sooners, and West Virginia. Dakota?
Texas looked great the other day. They just destroyed the Sooners. So I've got them winning this. And, this season's kind of been up and down for them, but like I was saying with Kansas, though, that momentum is going in the Longhorns' way. So, horns up for peace, man. I got Texas.
Dakota, I'm going to have to agree with you on this one. As much as it pains me to say this, I do have Texas winning. I just don't think West Virginia is going to be able to guard the elite guards of Texas, and Texas has that size to kind of compete with. We saw West Virginia against OU. They have some tall girls, and I think that Texas will do a good job of combating them, and it's not going to be that much of a difference between the bigs and against Texas.
I mean, well, we mentioned OU. They just blew out Iowa State. Yes. Like, they just blew out a top 10 team in the entire nation, number 1 in the Big 12. Yeah. Texas is legit. And they're not. Yeah, they're. We want to talk about momentum. Yeah. They're hitting their stride at the perfect time right now, and I don't think that's going to stop against West Virginia. One player that I've been really interested in is Rory Harmon, their point guard. She had 20 points against Iowa State, but she fills the stat sheet up across the board. She had 6 rebounds, 9 assists, and 6 steals against Iowa State. So even when she's not scoring, because they have some other players on that team that can score. They have some, like you said, some size on that team that they just kind of feed into the post. But Harmon's just a freshman, and she has continuously gotten better throughout this year, and I think that if she can keep in that stride, that's what I'm looking for. I think that Texas is going to win, and they don't have to have Harmon score 20 points to win. Yeah. But if she starts scoring 20 points, if she's upwards of 15 every game, that Texas team is going to get a whole lot scarier, having that level of guard play mixed with that size. So that's what I'm going to be watching, but I do think that either way, I think that Texas is going to be able to pull off a win against a tough West Virginia team, no matter what the record says. So we saw it here in Norman. Like that's a legit team. Yeah. So don't sleep on West Virginia, but I do think that Texas is going to pull that one off. Next up, Baylor and TCU. Dakota, two pretty far away teams here. What are you thinking on this one?
I'm taking Baylor. They're a really good team. They do have the 2 losses against the Sooners, but that team is just really good. We're going to go into this, and I'm thinking, it's not looking great for TCU because of Baylor's just strength of a team. Like, they are just well-rounded. So I've got them.
I'm going to also have to go with Baylor. I just don't see a world where TCU stops Nelson Smith down low. And Baylor, they like to get out and run. They like to play fast, and I just don't think that TCU is going to be able to handle that kind of speed.
Yeah, I mean, just two separate tiers of teams, realistically.
There's
I mean,
levels to this.
Yeah,
There's
levels to this. You're exactly right. And I mean, we just saw them play, and Baylor blew them out by 25 points. 4 of their 5 starters hit double figures. Nelson Smith and Egbo both hit over 20 points. When you have that size, mixed with that skill, mixed with the shooting outside, not many teams can match that. That's not even a knock on TCU. That's just how good Baylor is. That's across the nation.
Yeah. Although they're not in like the top of the conference, like they're up there, I still think they're like the best team because they're so well-rounded.
It's hard to not, like when you have Nelson Smith, it's hard to pick against it. You know, I mean, realistically, she's one of those players where it's like in Ayoka Lee, in Aaliyah Boston, like those post presences.
Future #1 picks.
Exactly. I mean, lottery picks, it's bound to happen. But now, the big game in the Big 12. Top ranked match, top 25 match. OU and Iowa State. Iowa State came into Norman earlier this season and beat OU. Dakoda, are they going to be able to do it again?
You know, possibly, but I'm going to go with OU because I'm thinking after 2 losses, there's got to be a bounce back. I know it's the same for Iowa State, but there's got to be a bounce back, and I'm thinking that Coach Baranczyk's going to make that happen. Whatever she has to do, it's going to happen. So I'm going to take OU because I see our guards just playing great. We've got to score the ball more. We've got to get our rebounds with the bigs. So I think really Maddie Williams is going to have to take over in this game if they're going to win, and I do have them.
Yeah, Dakoda, I'm going to have to agree with you on that one. I am going to take OU in this game. It's going to be a bounce-back game, like Dakoda said, and I think you'll see that Maddie Williams and Taylor Robertson start to get back to their normal selves. We haven't seen them like that the last 2 games, but I think they'll get back to how they normally play. And I think Kelby Washington might be an X-factor in this game. I think she's going to bring that defensive intensity that we talked about earlier, and she's just going to start clamping up some people.
Yeah. Tyler, are we gonna agree on this one too and just go all around the table for the Sooners? Or
No.
Really?
No, we're not.
Really?
Listen, you guys are talking about bounce-back games. Texas Tech is a bounce-back game type of team, and they lost. Yeah. Iowa State is not a team that you come and bounce back against. This is a top 10 team in the nation. And I went and looked back at that game in Norman. You know what I mean? And I was like, okay, what happened here? How did the Sooners lose in this one? Ashley Jones shot 5 for 25. And Iowa State still won by 10. Yep. That's not going to happen with Ashley Jones too often. You know what I mean? Like that is not something that consistently happens. And in that game, Taylor Robertson only had 8 points. I just don't see, and like I said, you're talking about bounce-back games. This is an elite team. This is a national contending team that you're going on the road in a tough environment to face. That's not a team that you bounce back against. If you were going to get that momentum back, that would have been last night against Texas Tech. And the Sooners blew that. So I just don't, I think that it's a down, I think after this Iowa State game, maybe. But bouncing back in a tough environment like that, not to say the Sooners can't do it, because they're an extremely talented team. And realistically, the Taylor Robertson you saw against Iowa State is not the Taylor Robertson that everyone around the nation is used to, being on top 10, player watch lists and things like that. That 8 points is not regular, but neither is Ashley Jones shooting like that. And Iowa State still won by 10. So I think you have more players on the Iowa State team outside of Ashley Jones as well, like Emily Ryan popped off for 20 points in that game as well, for over 20 points. So it's more than just Ashley Jones in this. And we heard Coach Baranczyk talking about that when we talked to her about stopping Ashley Jones. Yep. It's more than just Ashley Jones.
Good players.
And I just, had the Sooners bounced back and beat Texas Tech, I would have felt better picking OU. But going into that on a two-game losing streak, 2 pretty bad losses realistically, I find it tough to pick OU.
I look at it like this. We got seniors in Taylor Robertson and Maddie Williams. We have a national coach of the year finalist right here in Norman. It's going to be a great game in Iowa State, and literally, I'm saying this right now. I think Maddie Williams is going to have a game. I think she's going to have a game because she's got to pull it off. You need momentum, as I was talking about earlier, and it's the biggest thing. So, I don't know, man. I see OU, man.
It's gonna be a great game. It should be good games all weekend, but we'll just have to wait. We'll have to wait and see, and we'll come back next week and see who was right? Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching Game Day U. We will be back here next week with another exclusive interview with Jennie Baranczyk and some more content for you.